Uh, well, hello. Welcome to week 30. Now, it has been a little while since I've been on here for any video. It's been quite a while since I've been on here for a book. Um, it has been a crazy time. I have not had time to read like I would like. I certainly have not had time to record. I've had difficulty finding places where I can record in the times that I've got free. Um, and it doesn't look like that is going to get much better anytime soon, but I can make an effort, and that's what I'm going to try and do, make an effort to get these done when I can. So, week 30, book 30, is this Vineland by Thomas Pynchon. Now, this book was published in 1990, and it was by this time that I had become something of a Pynchon fan, having read uh, having read Crying Aloud 49 and having tried to read Gravity's Rainbow at least. I can't say for certain if I'd read Gravity's Rainbow by 1990. I might have. I know my initial attempt failed. Um, And this book came out in 1990, and my first attempt to read Gravity's Rainbow would have been 88 or 89, so just a year before this. So I doubt it. However, this is, what is this? This is, yep, this is a first edition, and I don't think I ever had the cover to it. But this is the first edition, and pretty much all the rest of the Pynchon I have the hardcover first edition. Um, I don't care about that really. It just is the case that I buy them when they come out and know about them. So that doesn't really mean very much to me in terms of collecting or anything like that. In any case, Vineland marks a significant departure from what Pynchon was doing in his first three novels. Now remember, Gravity's Rainbow, published in 73. I was wrong. I said 72 before. Published in 73. And this published in 1990. So it's been 17 years. It's been a significant time lag between his previous novel and this one. So, uh, in fact, there was speculation after Gravity's Rainbow that he would just go dark because he doesn't have a public life. He's very private. But then a collection of short stories called Slow Learner came out in, I think, 84. And then this came out. Now, the stories in Slow Learner are all early stories, things that he had published prior to the Crying Lot 49. I think some of them were published after V, but all before Crying Lot 49. I decided not to include it in this particular series because although I have read it and I enjoy it, I don't currently seem to have a copy of it. So it's a little harder to incorporate unless I bought a new copy. And I haven't done that. So in any case, Slow Learner will not be in this right now. Maybe I'll include it some other time. I don't know. In any case, Vineland. What is Vineland about? What can you say about this book? Well, what this book is mostly about is about an aging hippie in 1984, just as Reagan has won re-election, um, is targeted once again by the DEA and federal agents because of his past associations with pot smoking and with the radical left. And he and his 14-year-old daughter, Prairie, Zoid Wheeler is his name, and Prairie have to basically leave so that they don't get arrested and possibly abused by um, first a DEA agent, Hector Zolninga, I believe, Hector, and then more ominously, a Fed guy, Brock Vaughn. Now, this gets immediately into typical kind of Pynchon craziness, because what in the world had Zoid and Wheeler done to get this kind of attention? Well, it all revolves around Prairie's mom, who is named Frenesi, Gates. Now, I personally had always pronounced this free and easy, because I thought free and easy Gates and the whole idea of Zoid Wheeler, so of free and easy and Gates being something of a kind of contradiction that Pynchon would enjoy, and then Wheeler, sort of mobility, sort of the rambler, and then Prairie, sort of a wide open field caught somewhere between Gates and Wheeler. I thought, okay, this is a typical kind of stupid wordplay that Pynchon would include in his characters' names. When I, however, was messing around on an AI, they called free and easy frenzy gates. Now that's interesting too, because frenzy suggests kind of the chaotic, untamed nature of that character, and that's certainly accurate in terms of what she does. So essentially, um, this character, I'm going to call her what I called it, which is Free and Easy. Free and Easy was part of a underground film collective, 24 FPS, and um, they had been producing guerrilla videos. And what they would do is they would go into some trouble spot that was going on, film what was going on, and then release that video so other people could see it. Now, remember, this is before the time of real alternative media. This is before, well before things like the internet and that sort of thing. So these kinds of film documentaries would have been fairly invaluable for the left, documenting the excesses of the late 60s of the Nixonian crackdown, which is exactly what she was up to, exactly what 24 FPS was doing. Um, Filming protests and whatnot, and police brutality and whatnot, and getting that out to other radicals. Okay. And in doing this, they come across a prosecutor, Brock Bond. And Brock Bond is your typical kind of, suit wearing fascist from their point of view. And all the rest of them are horrified by him. But Free and Easy is secretly very attracted to him. And they eventually start sleeping together. And so she is led to betray the 24 FPS and betray the movement. And she does this in the People's Republic of Rock and Roll, which developed at San Narciso College under the leadership of Weed Atman. Weed Atman was a professor who sort of accidentally became the leader of this movement because he was tall enough to see over the crowd. He was taller than anyone else. And so people rallied to him and saw him as a center in sort of some chaotic early meetings and this sort of thing. Okay, so he became the leader. And through Brock Bond's manipulation, Freenezy manipulates one of the other members of PR cubed, to assassinate Weed. And Rex, the guy who does this, no, he does this, and PR3 falls apart because of this, as does 24 FPS. Although I believe that 24 FPS had been falling apart before this. 24 frames per second, what it stands for, which is related to the number of frames you need to see, that you're seeing now in order for this to appear to be constant movement. What you're really seeing is still frames, still images, one after another, really quickly. And I think it has to go 24 frames per second for you to be uh, for you to fall into the illusion that what you're seeing is actual movement. All you're seeing is still images flashed across your eye fast enough to appear as movement. particularly in an old film. Digital might be a little bit different. I'm not. I mean, same concept, but I think that the frame per second manipulation is more complex in digital. Um, but film was 24 FPS what it usually did. So 24 FPS is what they called their film collective. You know. Okay. So after she betrays all these people and is taken away by Brock Bond, she's rescued by one of the members of 24 FPS, goes by DL, Daryl Louise, from Brock Bond's capture. Although DL realizes that she's a lost cause, that she's turned on them, and DL and Freenezy part ways in San Diego on the beach, where Zoid Wheeler just happens to be walking along. He and Freenezy get together. They produce a child, Prairie, and then shortly after Prairie is born, I believe, um, is it Hector who shows up? I think it's Hector who shows up and basically forces them apart. Because if they don't part ways, Brock will put him in jail. I don't remember exactly the threat, but it's a serious threat. Anyway, so that's where Vineland comes in. Prairie and Zoid go up to Vineland, which is up in Northern California in the Eureka area in the Redwoods. And I meant to look this up to see if it's really there. I have no idea if it's really there. I've been to Eureka, but I really honestly don't remember if any of the geography he spells out up there is real. Probably it isn't, but then again with Pynchon, maybe it is. You never know with him until you look it up, and I didn't look it up. Because it really doesn't matter. It's not really about that area. It's about ideals about America. It's about ideals about freedom. And anyway, so these got Prairie grows up to be 14, maybe 15, I remember, I think 14, under the care of Wheeler. And in order to keep the feds off his case, Zoid Wheeler has to go and jump through a plate glass window once a year to keep his disability checks coming. It's completely staged, and he knows it's staged, but he has to do it. He's become known for it. In fact, the book opens up with him doing this, with his next year of him going to have to jump through a window. And he tries to mix it up and do something else, but the media won't have it. So he has to go jump the window, and he finds out when he jumps to the window that it's really made of fake glass. It's really made of candy. And he wonders how many in the past have been candy. How many times it's been just fake. And that sort of for appearances, that sort of fakeness, um, is one of the key themes here. Okay, so towards the end of the book, Prairie is in a sleeping bag out in the woods where she's finally met her mom at a reunion or a family reunion, and Zoid has sort of kind of reconnected a little bit with her, not in a romantic way by any means. They are done as a couple. There's no doubt about that. But hadn't seen her for 14 years or 13 years, whatever it was. So they all see each other again. And then Prairie wants to be alone, so she goes off into the woods. And Brock comes down in a helicopter to steal her away, and she seems to have the same exact attraction to fascism that her mom does. But at the last second, Brock is whisked away and apparently dies off screen, which is weird because he's a vile presence throughout most of this book, and then suddenly he just ceases to exist and disappears. And that confrontation with him and Prairie should be some kind of culmination of something. But just like other meetings that happen late in Pynchon books, where two threads of a story kind of connect, it fizzles into nothingness. Okay, so that's basically the plot. Um, there's lots of details I'm skipping. I'm skipping DL's entire ninja background, but there are two things about this book that are very troubling, and there are flaws that make this book just not quite up to par with what he did in the 60s. One is the continued misogyny and sexism. Now, obviously, some of it, can be attributed to, uh, uh, a critique of the masculine gaze and critique of patriarchy, just as Lolita by Nabokov is. But it's too pronounced and it's too unrelenting, and there really isn't anything to relieve it here. Um, in fact, Prairie even pals around with a girl named Che at one point, who apparently is sleeping with her stepfather just to piss off her mom, and is going around accepting all kinds of offers from older creepy men, and it's just and then Free and Easy, what's she doing for the government? Well, she's working as a high class escort to entrap various left wing figures. So that's what she's doing, going around and entrapping them in sex games. And DL, Dara Louise, she gets involved in all of this because she gets sold into white slavery in Asia and is sold to a rich white man, and also works as a bit of a high class prostitute at certain points. So just like in other earlier Pynchon, all the women here seem to be okay with being basically passed around as sex objects. And Pynchon's critique of it does not go deep enough and does not ring true enough, as well as um, another one of the characters who seems to be a stand-in for Pynchon, Zoid, has an attraction to underage girls. And, this Pynchon is who he is, but this is, it's disappointing to me because I really enjoy his intellectual prowess and the skill of his prose, but these seem to be just blind spots in the way that he writes or in his worldview. Now, maybe these are self critiques. Maybe he is pointing out that, look, hey, I ain't nobody special. I got my flaws, and here are some of them. Maybe. I don't really know. But one wishes that there was perhaps some kind of relief from this kind of thing. And the other problem is related, but not directly, which is this is set in 84, published in 90. You got to believe it was written mostly in like 87, 88, 89. There are some indications that maybe some of it was written as bits of you know, the Lot 49 that didn't work out, or maybe even parts of Vineland, excuse me, parts of Gravity's Rainbow that didn't work out and were reworked, or maybe there was some kind of, we don't know, because Pynchon does not tell us anything about his process. So we don't know if this was dashed off in 6 months. We don't know if it took him 5 years to work on it. We don't know if it took him 15. We don't know. We have no idea how he managed to create it. But public um, by an author who is concerned about conspiracies and underground and dis, dissemination of information and disinformation, the complete and utter lack of any mention of the gay rights and the disabled rights movements that were paralleling the civil rights movement and the political movements of like the SDS and whatnot is a glaring omission here. Now, I know that this book is about one thing. It's about the politics, about the pot smoking, about the freedom, about the hippies. I get that. I get that that's what it's about. But those other things were there, and they were part and parcel of this, and they're mostly skimmed over. And what it says about race is problematic yet again for Pynchon, because one of the things it does here is Rex has a really high, fancy car, and in order for to have solidarity with the civil rights movement, the black leaders of the civil rights movement, he gives them the car. And they're all scheming who gets to drive it first. So they're not doing it for politics. They're just doing it because they wanted his car. And it's just, come on. Okay, I mean, people are people and corruption happens and crap happens and nobody's perfect and all that. But these are glaring omissions. There are several places where Pynchon could have just dashed off a line or two that would have fixed this. And that he didn't is troubling. So I would have to say that overall, this book is not up to his standard. This is a sloppy book. It can and probably will be made into a movie that will probably fix its shortcomings by just those little small additions need to be there. But this book has lofty aims that it fails at, unfortunately. For one thing, its history of the '60s to the '80s is too simple. It's just not that easy. So anyway, that's about it for today. Talk to you later.